Hey everybody, what's up? It's Andrew Martin from Andrew Martin Energy. I am really excited and a little bit speechless. I just finished channeling a message for you from the Lighted Ones. Actually, they came forward as the Lighted Ones, Osiris and Amar. So it's the Lighted Ones, it's my creator self, and it's Osiris that are now stepping forward as the group to offer this message for you this month. So I had been getting the nudge from them for a while that they were really ready to kind of step back into this role of being the voice, of being the ones that have the content and the information. Um, I was super, super happy to see that. And I was also a little bit nervous because it's been a minute since they came through so strongly. But essentially, it was them talking about the next 6 months, talking about what's on tap for us, talking about some events which are going to be happening. I've got a couple events that are going to be happening. One, the Lionsgate portal in August, so that's on 8/8. And then already a couple events for July, which I'll be sharing all the information in the description as well. And really, the big gist of the message was that we are moving into a really accelerated period. They talked a lot about, healing versus transformation. And this was a lesson that they shared several years ago. And the idea being essentially that, healing is for the human. Healing moves us back to a previous state. And transformation moves us forward. Transformation is for the entirety of self. And transformation is an experience that, moves us beyond. And they talked a lot about the next 6 months being all about transformation, which I am super, super excited about. I love dealing with this next level stuff. And that's what this message was all about. So I'm really, really happy to share this with you for July. I'm thrilled that the Lighted Ones and Osiris and Amar have now, I guess, joined forces. And these layers of self are really coming forward in a way that is so strong and so clear and so wonderful. And yeah, that's it. I don't know what else to say. There's not a lot else to say, so I'll leave it at that. I love you. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Greetings to our friends, our partners, our companions, and our family. We are the Lighted Ones. We are Osiris. We are Amar. You could say that it's a full house here, but it is nothing for us to stream multiple layers of consciousness and awareness through a singular lens, through our brother Andrew, through our partner, our boots on the ground. He is one of us, and he is the one that has chosen to be informed this time around. We find ourselves at a level of awareness that we would refer to as transphysical. It is not that we are non-physical, it is simply that we are at a state of awareness and of being where we are not required to be in physical. Certainly, we can manifest, we have, we do, and we will. But at this moment in time, it is not necessary for us to take on a physical form, and so we refer to ourselves as transphysical. The idea here being that we are not beyond physicality, we simply reside at a place where it is not currently required. There are a lot of things that we could share with you today, and many more messages to come. However, for today, we wish to focus on what we are calling the acceleration. Now, our brother, our scribe, our friend, our partner, he is immediately thinking back to an old message from 2016, 2017 about the accelerated timeline. And we could say this is part 2. We could say that that original post was merely a primer or a preview. And now we are at the place in your experience where the rubber begins to hit the road. We like this phrase. We like this choice of words because that's exactly what is beginning to happen. You are at the point in your experience where the physicality of your journey will become more and more present, more and more pronounced, more and more tangible and real. The next 6 months promises to be quite an awakening, quite a revelation. Now, of course, we know that the minute that we speak of these things, your attention and your eyes turn to the world stage, turn to what's happening out there in that secondary reality, that beautiful mirror that always reflects to you exactly what's happening internally. And we know that for many of you, our words offer promises of revelations, of information, of knowledge coming to light that many of you have been waiting for. And while that may be part of the experience, what we really wish to turn your attention to is your inner landscape, your inner world, and your inner being. For this is where the bulk of these transformations will be occurring. Now, that is not to say that you will not be given the physical manifestation of those moments of hearing from your leaders, hearing from groups, hearing from organizations that are offering now the truth. However, all of that is secondary to your internal experience. Anything that's happening outside of you in the perceived physical world is merely only ever a reflection of what is already happening internally. So when you are able to experience something out there that is mind-blowing or earth-shaking or paradigm-shifting, it is only because internally you are ready for it. You have now reached a point in your inner landscape where you are prepared and able to receive such information. Do you understand that nothing outside of you can ever override what is happening internally? So any external experience that you may perceive, that you may live through, is only ever happening because your internal awareness has allowed it. Your internal awareness has reached a place where it is able to conceive and perceive of those things that are happening externally. Were you not already attuned to it on some internal level, you would not perceive it outside of you. So let us share with you what you can expect over the rest of this year, this calendar year of 2021. You are in the beginning stages of the actual physical ascension. Now we want to clarify here, this does not necessarily mean that tomorrow you will wake up in a landscape that looks completely different, nor will you wake up in a body that looks completely foreign, or in an experience that suddenly shows you are transported to a new reality or a new level of awareness. Certainly you are going to have those experiences where things begin to shift, where things begin to change, where things begin to morph and evolve, and it will seem as if you are in some sort of strange wonderland. However, this is not the focus. The focus here is what is happening internally. That is where the real game is. That is where the real party is. That is where the real excitement is your galactic self, your multidimensional self, your more than human self, the rest of you. The self with the capital S is going to be arriving into your experience in a very real, tangible way, in ways that will be unignorable, in ways that will be inescapable, and in ways that you will no longer be able to explain away. Even the most skeptical of you are going to have experiences that you will be hard-pressed to explain away. Not all of these experiences are going to make sense to the logical, rational mind, and we would encourage you to allow them to occur anyway. Observe as the mind tries to clarify or quantify or label these experiences to no avail. Observe as your mind tries with great effort to make sense of things that it has never experienced before, to label and categorize experiences that it has no frame of reference for. You are moving into uncharted territory. You are moving into a level of experience that you have not perceived through physicality before. Now, this is not to say that you are not prepared. This is not to say that you are not ready, because in many ways what is happening is you are simply returning to your innate, natural way of being. You are simply remembering the truth of who and what you are. And as more of that remembrance comes online, as more of that remembrance is integrated, embodied, and realized, you will begin to see that much of this is already second nature. Because even though you have not experienced it necessarily through your human lens, you have experienced this before. This is a level of being that is constant. This is a level of being that is eternal. This is a level of being that you are more familiar with than the level of being that you are currently stationed at. Do you understand? The way of being that you are returning to is your innate way of being. It is more natural to you than anything you have thus perceived or experienced up until this point. So while the human self, the mind, the body, the emotions, and the energetics matrix that makes up your field, while you may not as a self have experienced this in its totality through the physical human experience, you certainly have experienced this before. This is a return to the natural way of being, a return to the natural state of living, a return to the natural laws that govern all living things. These natural laws precede and exist long after the laws of man have fallen. So while to the mind this may seem very exciting, this may seem very unusual, this may seem very foreign and very novel, it is indeed not. It is indeed as common as the sun, as common as the grass, as common as the air, these things that are a part of your everyday life that you take for granted, that you just assume will always be there, that you assume have always been there, that you assume are currently there now. And these ways of being that feel so natural that you don't even have to think about, that just experience and happen without you even having to consciously be aware of them. This is the area, this is the arena, this is the realm that you are returning to. So this is simply a matter of allowing. This is simply a matter of allowing your being to arrive, allowing the emanation of self, the true frequency of self, the true nature of self to return and to emerge into your everyday life. This is a shift of magnitude. This is a shift of magnificent proportions. This is an epic shift. This is you becoming more you than you have ever been while in physical form. This is you realizing what the actual level of awareness that your physical body holds is capable of. There is nothing you need to do other than remember how to allow. Now, this is no simple task. This is not an undertaking that for many of you comes easily because of the mind, because of the logic, because of the rational aspect of your brain that insists that things must follow these very specific guidelines in order to be real, in order to be acceptable, in order to be valid. And we would encourage you to begin to loosen your definition of what is real, to relax the rigidity around the requirements you have created for an experience to be a real, actual, measurable, verifiable experience. Because, friends, many of the ways that you have used to quantify and qualify and clarify your experiences in the past are no longer relevant. They are no longer applicable. They no longer apply. For you see, one of the major shifts that you are entering into is the shift from healing to transformation. We have spoken about this before, and we will review this for you now. Healing moves you backwards. Healing is for the human. The example we will use is, imagine that you broke your wrist. You go to the doctor so that you can heal your wrist and go back to the point in time where the wrist was not broken, where the wrist was whole and healed and balanced and in integrity. So healing is for the human self. When you heal, you go back to a state where you were prior to the brokenness. We can also apply this perspective to your experiences of trauma. When you heal the trauma, you go back to the point in time where the trauma occurred so that you can reintegrate those layers of self that were disintegrated as a result of the trauma. The parts of self that you excluded, the parts of self that held the pain or the suffering that were too intense and too big for you to initially handle, those are the parts that you integrate. You return to the point of trauma. You work with the geometry of the trauma. You eventually release that trauma from the field, and then the aspect of you that was traumatized can now integrate, and you are now whole from the perspective of the human self. That, of course, is an oversimplification of the experience of healing, but we know that you understand. Essentially, healing is moving backwards for the human to a previous state of being where one was not broken or traumatized. This, in a sense, brings you current. It brings you to the now. It brings you to the moment where you are integrated and all layers of self are now healed. This is not the end. This is not the end, friends. This is not even close. This is only the beginning. Healing is the beginning. Being healed brings you to the beginning. Being in a state of integration, of being healthy, whole, and balanced, brings you to a point where now transformation begins, because transformation moves you forward. Transformation is not only for the human, transformation includes the human. Transformation is the entirety of self with a capital S, moving forward, moving on, leveling up, moving beyond any previous known limitations, boundaries, or barriers of your experience. So transformation requires you to open your mind in a new way. Transformation requires your body to come online in a new way. Transformation requires the integration of all layers of the material self, the mind, the body, the emotions, and the spirit or the energy. These all make up the aspects of the material self, which is in essence your scuba suit that you acquire and you put on as you come into this experience of density. As you come from your trans-physical space into a very physical space, you require some hardware, some technology, no? You need a way to navigate this material world, just like if you as a human were to go walking on the bottom of the ocean, you would require some equipment to support you in your non-native environment. That is exactly what the human body, the material self, is for you. It is a suite of technology that allows you to move through this very material physical experience, and it is this suite of technologies, this material suit, so to speak, that is also going through its transformation. You are rebuilding the physical vehicle as you are ascending. You are rebuilding the physical vessel in real time as you are evolving on multiple levels. So the physicality, the human self, is simply part of it, and transformation is inclusive of all of you. Healing is what brings the human to the level of the rest of the self. Healing is what catches you up. Healing is what brings you to the current moment, to the current point, to the current plane. And then once the human self is healed, then it is able to transform and ascend with the rest of the self. Now, not all of you are ready for the level of intensity that is required for all of the self to ascend. So many of you will continue to experience parts of the ascension, pieces of the ascension, as aspects of you go to these higher levels of awareness, go through their transformative process, and then return with the codes and information that they in turn share with the rest of you. So in many ways, it is piecemeal in the beginning. In many ways, it is progressive. Part of you leaves, brings back a piece of the puzzle that is then put into place, and the rest of you then is informed, is downloaded, is upgraded with that information, and then in turn the next layer goes, and so on and so on. Whether you are doing this piece by piece, or whether you have achieved or arrived at a place where more of you is doing this at the same time, that is to say, a larger part of self is now going through this experience, this is of no matter. Whether you are going through this in your entirety of self, or whether you are going through this a little bit at a time, one piece at a time, one layer at a time, one thread at a time, is of no matter. It is of no measure, and ultimately it means nothing. It only means that part of you is ready while the rest of you is still preparing. So as this part of you moves to the front, receives the information, goes through this transformative process, and then moves back into the fold, so to speak, it raises the tide for all of you. A rising tide raises all boats. So whether you are going through this in the entirety of self, or as a layer of self, is of no matter, because eventually all layers of self will arrive and will achieve this level of frequency. The only destination that is ever of any concern is a destination of frequency, and even that is difficult to clarify and quantify. But what we mean is this, that as you move through the layers of awareness, as you expand and go through this process that you have labeled ascension, it is simply an expansion of all that you are into new levels of awareness, into new layers of the atmosphere, if you will. And as you expand beyond what you have previously known, these layers of self that arrive first, that are on the leading edge, that are the avant-garde, are the ones that receive, record, and download the experience into the rest of your body. This process is very efficient, this process is very effective, and as more of you is attuned and able to handle these higher levels of frequency and awareness, as more layers of self are acclimated to these higher levels of atmosphere, so to speak, so then more of you will be able to hang out there, will be able to balance there, and will be able to root there. So as more of you can root in a specific layer of frequency or awareness, then that becomes your set point. That becomes your new neutral. That becomes the new foundation. And know that you will never proceed beyond a certain level of awareness until all of you is able to make that journey. So as the entirety of self acclimates to these new levels of awareness, then the entirety of self is able to ascend to that new level. And until the entirety of self is able to ascend to that new level, parts of self will go into these areas, will go into these higher frequencies. They will absorb, download, and report back with the information. They will share the frequency. And at first it will be much like a member of your tribe has returned from a journey and is simply sharing their story around the campfire. And as those who are around the campfire are ready to experience what that layer of self has experienced, they too will experience that until all layers of self have experienced that. And once that has happened, then you ratchet up a notch. Then you move into a new layer of awareness, which in a sense becomes then permanent. It becomes your new zip code. It becomes your new location. It becomes your new set point. Until such time then as you are ready to move to the new layer and the next layer and the next layer and so on. Now we have simplified this and made it a linear process, and it is not necessarily a linear process. But for the next 6 months, it would do you well to begin to track your progress through simple documentation of the experiences that you are having, of the pinnacles that you are achieving, and knowing that as you raise your frequency to a new high, as you move into an area that has previously been inaccessible to you, then that becomes the new ceiling. And as the rest of you moves up, then that becomes the new ceiling. And the rest of you moves up, and so on and so on. So this is a very elastic experience of expansion and contraction. And the contractions only serve to ever concentrate the energy, much like a slingshot, concentrating all of that energy and momentum into a very, very tight geometry where it then explodes and it opens up and it creates a very rapid process of acceleration. And it is this rapid process of acceleration that you are entering into, my friends. The next 6 months is going to be transformation on steroids. The next 6 months is an acceleration. This is going to be unlike anything you have experienced thus far, and we are very excited to walk with you through these chapters, to walk with you down this path, and to be a part of this experience. What we will be offering over the next 6 months are gatherings, groups, events, and circles, all designed to support you in the transformation of self. Remember, this is you moving forward. This is you being called to new levels of awareness that you have yet to experience while in a physical form. This is moving into the very measurable, very tangible, very real experience of ascension and acceleration. Now we wish to offer another perspective here. Ascension is not a destination. Ascension is not a single moment. Ascension is a process. Ascension is a journey, just like everything else in your experience of this universe. It is eternal, it is infinite, and it is without end. And once you reach a single destination, once you arrive at a finish line, so to speak, guess what? What is waiting for you is the next leg of infinity, the next leg of the adventure, the next level of eternity. So the idea that ascension is a beginning, a middle, and an end unto itself is a bit misleading. Certainly there will be peak moments. Certainly there are times within this journey where you could say this is a marker, this is a headline, this is a bold typeface experience. However, it is not the only part of this experience. It is not the only part of this journey, and we will invite you to please discard any ideas that ascension is a point A to point B to point C experience. It is non-linear. It is multidimensional. It is elastic. It is happening at all levels, in all ways, all of the time. It is so complex, and the geometries of it are so far beyond anything that you have perceived thus far that it would not be understandable or even applicable for us to share in this message. So we will say to you simply, understand that ascension is a process of journeys. It is a process of adventures. It is a process of chapters. And as we have said before, as you climb the ladder of your experience, the rung you are reaching for will eventually become the rung that you stand upon. So certainly aspire, certainly have goals, certainly want the desire to achieve is one that will serve you well. However, we also wish to remind you that there really is no achievement, because the minute you get there, that achievement is old. It is yesterday's news, and the soul, the spirit, the self is on the next adventure and already ready to move into the next layer of awareness. So yes, have your goals, have your destinations in mind. They are important. And also be just as willing to let them go, to discard them, and to hold on to them loosely, for they are not the point. They are not the purpose. It is the journey itself that is the purpose. You don't realize how powerful you are when you cross the finish line. You realize how powerful you are by arriving at the finish line. So it is only ever the journey. The destination is secondary. So yes, there will be peak moments. Yes, there will be times and periods where you will throw your hands up in the air and leap with joy and scream with excitement and elation. And those will be beautiful moments to witness. Those will be beautiful moments to experience. And we encourage you to milk every ounce of joy you can from them. And then remember that the journey is eternal. The journey is infinite. And whether or not you are aware of it, whether or not you have been able to qualify it, to quantify it, or to measure it, the truth is, friends, you are ascending. You are in process. You are in the car. You are on the road. The journey has begun. And this is where it gets really, really exciting. So for the next 6 months, we will focus on transformation. For the next 6 months, we set our eyes forward. For the next 6 months, it is about expanding up, expanding out. It is about moving beyond. The time for healing is coming to a close. Now, certainly there will be moments on the path where you must stop to heal. We are not saying that there will never be another moment of healing. However, if you want to look at it this way, where in the past your journey was 90% healing and 10% transformation, now it is flipped and you are looking at a journey that is 90% transformation and 10% healing. Remember, healing is for the human only and it moves you backwards. Transformation is for the self, the entirety of self, self with the capital S, and it moves you forward. You are on the forward trajectory. You are on the accelerated timeline. You are on the path of greatest momentum. And we are excited to share this with you. We are excited to walk with you. And we cannot wait to share more. We are the lighted ones. We are Osiris. We are Amar. In love and light we leave you. Rejoice.